I've also thought it's just like that. You just have to listen and then, yeah, get what you wanted to get from that particular, material. But to tell you, there are actually two commonly processed, which I don't know if you are familiar with. Okay, let's start. We call it process in listening. The first one is the what we call top-down process. What do you mean by top-down? Looking at the arrow, we start from
The
top to
top.
top. Going?
Bottom.
Up, what?
Going to the, going down, going to the bottom.
Rise favorite position.
It's going down, it's a sliding position. But what does it mean when it comes to, if we're going to elaborate that kind of process in listening, what does it mean? Is it the process that we usually do when we listen? Either to the teacher, to me, to your, gadgets while listening to music? Is this the process that we are using? What do you think? Now, before you answer me that question, let's try to have what are those things that are involved, or what are these processes? How do we know whether we are doing the top-down processing and listening? First, listening for gist. What do you mean by gist? Why do you listen to music?
Or G's.
What do you mean by gist?
G's.
Enjoying? Enjoying for fun. So you're listening for fun. Most likely with you guys, when you listen to music, you just wanted to have fun. Or maybe you just wanted to kill the time. And you like the song, that's why you listen to it. You don't, when you listen to music, you actually probably don't think of the lyrics itself.
I do.
You probably don't really mind whatever the lyrics are or its content, because you just enjoy probably the rhythm, the melody, and you just wanted to listen to it. But when we say listening for a gist, for example, I am explaining to you something. You are listening to me because you wanted to take the gist. You wanted to take what is important and what you are listening to. Okay? For example, I am giving this lesson. What is the gist of me speaking in front of you?
So that we can know the process in listening.
Yeah, so you would know the techniques, how you can actually do an effective listening, especially how you're going to apply your listening skills in your exams, in the learning process. Okay? So finding the gist, finding what is very important in whatever audio file you are given. There are some examples or some listening exam materials that are only given in one sentence. And you just have to find the core or the gist content. Now, if you also have to take the main ideas, it's the same. Topic and setting the text. Okay. So when we listen, we set the text. What is this about? If, for example, right now I'm going to play something here. If you don't know what to do, you will just basically probably just listen. But you actually don't know what's the purpose why you are listening. Not unless I tell you, okay, I'm going to play this audio file and you give me the main idea from this audio. So if I will ask you that, what are you going to look for when you listen to the material? You're going to look for the main idea. Let's say the speaker is talking about plagiarism. So basically, when he talks about the plagiarism, you basically have the idea that that file or the question that might be given using that kind of audio file is about or is related to plagiarism. That's the main idea. Okay? What else aside from those first examples or first explanation? Listening for a specific information. I don't know if you have had this experience wherein you were given a listening exam. in grade 9 or probably grade 8, and then you have to fill in questions. You have to really like listen to it, and then there are questions that are going to be given to you, and then you have to find that specific information you needed so that you will be able to fill in the blank. Okay? That's one thing. Have you experienced that?
Yes.
Do you still remember how you did that in your previous classes? Well, I hope so, because that will still be applied. Sequencing the information. When we say sequence, what do we mean?
In order.
Yes, we put things in order. So for example, in the exam, you have to arrange the information given by the speaker in an orderly manner. So you have to pay attention to it. Because your exam paper might need you to answer it in a chronological order, in a proper sequence, from 1 to 3, or from 1 to 5, or from A to E. So that's how you say and how you do the sequencing. And then guessing. Well, I think most of you are fond of doing this one. Guessing for the answer, especially if you run out of time. Or especially if you miss the part where you have to take the answer from. Right? In the listening exams or in the listening exercises, you cannot say, Miss, please pause because I didn't hear the last word. We cannot do that. For some of you who maybe have had like experience taking IELTS or TOEFL, when you take that kind of exams, they will display the audio file just one time. And so you have to really pay attention so you would get all the details you need for you to answer the question. But in IGCSE, in grade 10, in the Cambridge exams, usually they make it twice. They play the audio file or the conversation or whatever is that piece for the material for the exams twice. They even have like gap, like let's say 1 minute or 2 minutes for you to be able to read also the questions. That's an advantage. Most of the students took that as an advantage so that they could review whatever answers they have given at the first time they heard the...
Get it.
Okay.
I will kick your ass.
Shut up. Leave. Oh, Dave, can you go down first and see Miss York?
Graves, 1 out of 2.
Okay, Dave ordered something and then, yeah, he needs to see Miss York. Okay, going back to that, guessing game. When we don't know and we run out of time while we're listening to the audio file or to the material, we tend to guess. But sometimes when we guess, we make sure that it's close to the answer that we're supposed to write. Okay? How about infer? How do you infer? What do you mean by infer? Infer.
Go to another.
Any idea?
How do
Is this the first time you meet the word infer? I think you have already.
Infer is like referring or?
Not really.
It's like guessing from the comments.
Yes, somehow it's similar to guessing, but then it's more of like you're trying to conclude. You're trying to make like an assumption that, oh, okay, this will be the answer for that. That's how you infer. Unlike when you guess, sometimes when you guess, you just randomly pick a word or a line that you thought will be the correct answer. But when you infer, you basically base your answer from probably the context. Even the audio file has not been finished yet, you already have the idea, you tend to infer what could probably be the ending of this conversation or of this material. So that's how you do that, okay? So, if I'm not mistaken, probably you would also agree with me. This is the most common process of listening that most of us probably are doing, right? Do you do this? Do you listen for the information?
Yeah.
Take my idea?
Yeah.
Yes. Probably if you are given like a song in the class and then you have to like complete the lyrics. There's like the lyrics there in your text, and then there are blank words that you have to supply the missing words, and then you have to listen to the music. It's still the same. It's still like, you know, taking the information.
Will there be a class like that?
Well, in some cases, yes. Probably in the practice there will be like that. But most likely in the listening exams preparation for the IB, the difficulty is much higher. It's more of like, you know, we have this more of like inferring and then also taking the gist. It's not exactly writing the word that you hear from the material, from the audio file. Okay? Any question when it comes to the first process?
No.
So we call this top down. Okay? From top to bottom. From taking the main information of the audio file to the last kind of like inferring, making your own assumption or conclusion. Now, the second one, there are only actually two. There are only two. It's the opposite of the first one. Looking at the arrow, we start from the bottom to the top. But do you think it would be easy if we do it this way?
No.
Why? Is it because you just saw the arrow or you have seen the...
Yeah. Grammatical
The
forms,
explanation here.
intonations.
So when we try to use this process, which aside from it's more complicated, I guess, it's also it will also take more time. If you will be asked by your teacher to do an assessment or to do the listening process following the bottom-up process, you might probably request from your teacher to please give us some time on this. Or please play the audio file like 3 or 4 times, the least. And maximum of probably 10 times if you would request. How is it done? And what kind of process does it have to be? This kind of process is going to distinguish individual sounds and word boundaries. You could imagine you have to be very particular in listening to the sound of the words. What are the word boundaries? An idea. What is the meaning of boundary?
Limit.
The limit. So when we say word boundary, what do we mean?
Word limit.
The word limit, okay. It's not like when you are writing, a composition or a paragraph. When we say word boundaries, when it comes to the listening skills, or when it comes to the application of the listening skills, when we look at the question sometimes, we tend to look at the last word. Or when we listen to an audio file, we tend to listen to the last word of every sentence. So that's what you call also the word boundaries. There are also teachers who are saying that they call it signposts. Because it's like a post that gives you the signal, oh, okay, so this word is my clue, is my key for me to get the answer. So that's what you call also word boundaries. Okay? Yeah, it's the limit, but it's not actually like the number of words that you're going to listen to, but it's the last word that you might hear in the audio file or in the question, and which can lead you to find your answers. The next one, and okay, including also other stressed syllables. Identify thought groups. What do you mean by identifying thought groups? This short conversation, what is it about? Probably it's only 1 line or 2 lines conversation. Or let's say the speaker only gave 2 lines sentences or 1 line sentence. What is it about? That's the thought, the group of words that are the main thought. Okay? Then listen for intonation patterns and utterances. Is it important for a speaker to know the proper intonation? Yes or no?
Yeah.
What is intonation?
The way you pronounce or tone, the pitch.
The pitch, the rise and fall of
works and the pauses we give.
Yes. So it's, for example, if I am talking to you right now and my tone is only 1, do you think you will pay attention to me?
No.
You will even understand what I'm saying?
No.
No. So speakers, and of course in the listening materials, it is very important that we pay attention to the rise and fall of the words, how they utter the words, the proper pronunciation. Well, I think with us Asian, the problem is that when we listen to an audio file or a material for listening exams, and the material is from, like, let's say UK, and we're not familiar with the accent, sometimes it makes us, it's hard for us to understand what they're saying. No matter how hard we try, sometimes it's really difficult. So it's good that nowadays gadgets are there for you to use, and then most of you are also listening to music. Even though you just listen to music, you can still identify the accents also there. And what more if you are watching movies, that will help you be familiar with the sound, with how these native speakers pronounce the words. We are all, guys, not native speakers. We have English as our second language. Even Eduarda, I guess, is also a second language speaker of English, right? She has Portuguese as her first language. I have Filipino. Ash has Hindu, right? You have Bahasa Indonesia.
Hindu.
Hindi, sorry. Hindi. See? Yeah, I'm referring to the religion now. So, okay. See? So that's why it's also important for us to be familiar with all of these things. Okay? Aside from that, we also need to identify the grammatical forms and functions. We don't just listen to it, because if we don't also notice of the grammatical forms and functions, we will not be able to understand also what is the content of that listening material. Right? Would you understand something that is being given to you, which is like grammatically incorrect? I think you will have a headache. For some of you here, maybe it's like, the test of the ON when you were in grade 9. Some of the questions there are having like really bad.
The English one.
Yes. So rather than you are being helped to find the answer, it would make you like even more confused how you're going to find the correct answer for that. Now, the last slide. We have to recognize contractions and connected speech. To recognize linking words. What are these contractions? Remember when we have like the he is, we have his. So he is instead of they. So when we listen, sometimes we really have to pay attention also with that kind of that part of speech, contractions. Because we also need to know whether the word that is being uttered, is it the his with the possessive pronoun or the his with he is. Okay? And as well as the kind of speech, the connected speech, whether this kind of utterances or this kind of lines are really supported or coherent with the other sentences given. Okay? And linking words, what are the linking words that we usually know?
Because.
Connectors.
Because.
Yes, because, and, or, those connectors. We call it connectors and linking words. Okay? Now, any question? We only have two processes. Top, down, and then bottom, up. Now, I am going to give you an audio file. I'm going to play one audio, and we will try to use first the top-down process. Will that be okay? forgot to put the speaker on. Sorry.
Oh my god.
No, I like him.
Not playable.
Okay. I've taken this audio file from Boost. So let's have it.
Wait, Monica was he suddenly came out from flagging what was it? Hey, cowboy.
Boost, listening 4, Unit 1 practice. Activity A, listen to the lecture. The strong wind and rain of thunderstorms can cause a lot of damage, but hailstorms can do even more damage. So what are hailstorms and what damage can they do? Hailstorms are storms in which small pieces of frozen water, called hailstones, fall from the sky. While sometimes hailstones are quite small, in serious hailstorms they can be the size of golf balls. Imagine hailstones made of ice and as hard as rock falling out of the sky. Hailstones can damage gardens and farmers' crops. They can break windows and the windshields of cars. Luckily, you can usually tell if a hailstorm is coming because the clouds that make hail often look slightly green in color. So if you know a hailstorm is on its way, make sure your parents' car is under cover and get everyone indoors.
Okay. Listening for the first time, what do you think it is about? Okay. Aside from
Boost,
it's
listening
talking
4.
about hailstorm, what probably are the other questions that might be given?
The damage.
I want to know when it's about to happen.
Oceans, like how you're going to prepare. What is hailstorm?
How can you predict hail?
Okay. So what process did we use this time?
I don't know. The first one?
Bottom,
No.
up, or top down?
Top down.
Yes, because the first thing that you have identified actually is the gist. You were telling me that it's the lecture is about hailstorm. Because most of the time you hear the speaker saying the word repeatedly, right? And you also hear that the speaker mentioned about the effects and then the causes and probably the damages. So let's see what are actually the question given for that. So, can you read the first question? Alicia? What? Alicia, can you please read the question?
Oh, on my hand. What keywords does the speaker repeat?
Yes. What keywords?
Is it?
See.
Damage, hailstones.
Do you want me to play it again?
Yes.
Do you need me to play it again?
Yes.
Because I think the only word that really sticks into your mind or you remember is the word hailstorm.
No, damage also.
Damage also, but how many times?
A lot.
A lot. So, which do you think is the answer?
C.
Okay, C. How about number 2? Now, what is the main idea?
I cannot read.
You cannot read.
No, my
A.
Hey, bro.
I
Very
think that looks better. What is the main idea, do you think? What hailstorms are and what damage they can do. What the different kinds of storms are. Okay. Now how about number 3? Which of the following cannot be caused by hailstorm?
broken windows.
Blizzard.
What is a blizzard?
Snowstorm.
Snowstorm.
Blizzard.
So, do you think it can be a product of a hailstorm? No. So, and how can you come up with those answers if you didn't pay attention to the audio? Okay? So, even though you don't know yet what are the questions, by just listening to the audio file, to the lecture in particular, you basically already have the idea of what might be the questions, or what might be or what is the content of that particular material given to you. Okay? Now, let's check if your answers are correct. Exercise A.
Miss,
Yep.
are we allowed to
Yes.
do the question when the question will be given to us, right, Miss?
Yeah.
Can we do it while listening, or we should take it first?
In some cases, there are questions that are given before the audio file will be played. So it's like your invigilator will give you the time to read first the question, like what you do in the actual exams. You were given 5 minutes to read your paper. But as far as I remember, our new curriculum for the language B, you will have to listen first. And then after that, you will be answering the questions. So it's more difficult. For me, it's more challenging because you probably have no clue of what might be the questions. Not unless the audio files that will be given to you are like the short ones, which you can easily remember. But what if you are going to listen to a speech? You would remember. A speech would usually be like 3 to 5 minutes. 5 minutes probably the longest. And then you have to remember all the data that the speaker has given you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can we write another piece of paper?
Yes, definitely. You can ask for probably a draft paper where you can write down your notes. And when you are doing the note taking, then that's also the time you can use the word boundaries. You should remember like what are those words that probably were given emphasis in the lecture or in the speech. And you would also identify some important words because sometimes the speaker would sometimes give emphasis on the tone or on the utterance. Sometimes the stress is more when it comes to a specific important word given in the audio file. That can also be a clue for you. But the key here is, when you listen, you have to free your mind with anything. You have to really think that, okay, I'm going to take this exam, or probably I'm going to have this listening test. I don't need to think of anything else except for this. I have to free my mind of any worries or any questions. I just have to focus on what is going on. Because there are cases that some students are failing, especially in the actual exams. Because sometimes when they attend the exam, they are having problems and then they bring it there. So at the mock exams or in the exercises in the class, they were like really doing fine. They're even having great scores, but in the actual exams, they flunked. But when you ask them, why did you get only this much? You know what, miss? At the time I was doing the exam, the listening exam, I was really bothered. I'm so stressed, you know, I have this problem of blah, 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 blah. And so, it means that the student doesn't have the focus. So no matter how good you are, if you don't know how to, focus yourself, it's not only applied for listening, it applies to all the skills. Speaking, reading and writing, and listening. Okay? listener can also be a good speaker. Why? Because when you pay attention to someone, you get what the person wants to tell you. And then you will be also given the time to talk and share your point of view. That's how you do it. So in the discussion, even like in the class, when you listen to your teacher, you understand what we want to